The room appears settled and functional, offering no immediate signal that anything needs to occur. Light behaves in a way that feels dependable, allowing attention to remain relaxed. Surface details register quietly, without encouraging interpretation.
Minor variation appears as part of an expected flow.
Illumination suggests that time is progressing in a familiar manner. The environment continues operating without drawing focus to itself. Visual balance allows awareness to remain passive.
Change unfolds slowly enough to blend into expectation.
Familiar textures reinforce a sense of continuity. Nothing in the space suggests urgency or anticipation. Object placement feels deliberate, without implying purpose. The room offers no signal that interpretation is required. Clarity reduces cognitive effort.
The space feels complete, without implying narrative.
Nothing in the room asks to be remembered later.
The present moment feels sufficient on its own. There is no indication that attention should heighten.
The environment supports passive observation. Everything functions within expected limits. The room neither advances nor retreats. Nothing suggests that this moment will differ from the next.
Expectation stays dormant.
Perception encounters no resistance.
Nothing feels pending.
The room feels complete, and there is no immediate reason to believe this will change. The room still appears familiar, though its response to light introduces a detail that does not align with expectation. Brightness settles where it normally would not, without providing a reason.
The connection between object and effect feels slightly delayed. Orientation shifts register without any sense of movement. Shadow structure begins suggesting logic that does not fully resolve.
Light begins favoring a direction that lacks a visible source.
Reflections begin referencing positions that feel slightly incorrect.
Distance stops functioning as a reliable guide. Surface response duplicates without an identifiable cause. Directional certainty weakens while the space remains calm. Light begins organizing itself into unfamiliar structure. Object posture begins implying change without motion. Depth cues quietly exchange roles. Expected gradients reverse without signaling urgency. Correspondence between form and outcome weakens.
Single inputs begin producing multiple visual outcomes. Spatial logic bends without collapsing. Orientation shifts begin feeling selective. Separation between object and surface begins to erode. Light begins referencing the object rather than its source.
Distance stops, predicting clarity. Hierarchies of attention quietly dissolve. Alignment errors accumulate without escalation.
Causal direction becomes ambiguous.
The room continues functioning while becoming harder to intuit. The environment continues responding to change, though its reactions now seem slightly delayed from the moment they should belong to. Visual effects remain present even after their apparent cause has already passed. The room appears to hold more than one moment at the same time. Multiple temporal signals coexist without resolving into a single present. Cause and effect no longer agree on when events occur.
Expectation begins arriving before observation can confirm it. Visual information begins repeating instead of refreshing. The moment feels present without feeling current.
The room begins carrying visual memory alongside perception. More than one moment appears to occupy the same visual space. Effects no longer conclude when their causes end. Recognition now arrives after perception rather than alongside it.
Time indicators begin disagreeing quietly.
The present starts feeling slightly retrospective. Object and environment no longer feel simultaneous. Change begins to feel buffered rather than immediate. The scene gives the impression of having already occurred.
Temporal reference points begin sliding without direction. Visual memory overlaps with current input. The scene feels slightly behind itself. Completion no longer follows change immediately. The present stretches without advancing. The room behaves like a memory still forming. The scene appears to wait for itself.
Time no longer asserts a single position within the room. The room presents a state that feels complete without explaining how it arrived there. Visual order returns in a way that discourages further questioning.
Elements settle into relationships that feel rather than explored.
Orientation stabilizes without referencing what was previously unstable. Balance returns quietly without resolving earlier inconsistencies. Light resumes behavior that aligns with expectation rather than explanation. Visual complexity reduces itself without announcing completion. The environment stabilizes into a readable condition. Orientation settles into a position that discourages reinterpretation. Cause and effect appear to reconnect without commentary. Spatial logic reasserts itself without acknowledging interruption.
Continuity replaces variation without announcement.
The room no longer implies progression or delay. Nothing within the frame suggests a need for alteration.
The scene feels sufficient without asserting finality. Stability persists without indicating duration.
The present moment loses distinction from others. Temporal markers lose relevance when repetition feels exact. Recognition replaces curiosity.
Nothing appears unresolved.
The environment offers completion without explanation.
Nothing suggests a next moment. The scene feels complete in a way that implies recurrence.
Observation no longer produces discovery. The room appears ready to be observed again.